Flying Brian here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the famous Gettysburg Battlefield. And this is the Pennsylvania State Monument. It is the largest of the state monuments here at Gettysburg and is positioned along the Union Army's line of battle as it was formed up on the 3rd of July, 1863, atop what is known as Cemetery Ridge. The base of the monument is wrapped with bronze tablets that commemorate each of the Pennsylvania regiments that fought here. This one is for the 46th Infantry Regiment, which lists the entire roster of the unit. If you look closely, you can see some names have a star before them. Like Private John J. Wenrich here, which means they were killed or mortally wounded during the battle. If you were to count, you would find 1,182 names with stars on these tablets. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those that gave their lives that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause, for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, 1863. The Pennsylvania Monument is on the present-day Hancock Avenue, which basically follows the Union Army's front as it was on July 3rd, 1863. As one walks or drives along Hancock Avenue, you will see monuments erected by the individual units that were deployed along the front line on 3 July, 1863. On this particular spot is where Pennsylvania's Artillery Battery F, known as Hampton's Battery, was deployed for perhaps 100 feet left and right of the monument. Side by side, infantry and artillery units formed a continuous line that extended off into the distance there for nearly a mile toward the town of Gettysburg. Atop the monument is Nike, the goddess of victory and peace. In one hand, a sword, in the other, a palm branch, which symbolizes victory of spirit over flesh. Let's see if we can find our way up to the top of the monument. At the Pennsylvania Monument, and we're about to go through that door behind me, up to the top of the monument to look over the battlefield. A narrow spiral staircase takes you up to a sort of lobby. Cool. And then out onto an observation area. Continue on. The arrows point the way over to Little and Big Round Tops in the distance. Little Round Top on the left and Big Round Top on the right. Here's a nice view looking north. This is the area immediately behind the Union Army's front line. On July 2nd and 3rd, 1863, this area would have been a flurry of activity. It would have been teeming with units of reserve troops, military equipment of every type, and hundreds of animals and wagons. Across the field to the west, in this direction, were over 70,000 soldiers of the Confederate Army. They occupied the tree line seen in the distance about a mile away. Their line stretched continuously from left to right for about 4 miles. The Confederates that morning were facing over 100,000 Union soldiers. The stage was set that warm Friday morning for day 3 of the conflict. That is the Cadore farm along the Emmitsburg Road, and it is right in the middle of the battlefield. Talk about an unfortunate twist of fate. That is the 60-foot tall State of Vermont monument, topped with a figure of Brigadier General George Stannard. The area you are looking at was close to the center of the Union line on day 3 of the fighting here at Gettysburg, and this is where the Confederate Army would concentrate their efforts that hot, humid Friday afternoon of 3 July, 1863. The area became known as the high water mark of the Civil War because, although the Confederates did breach the Union line that day, it was only for a few minutes before they were repelled and retreated back across the field and eventually south out of Pennsylvania, never to return. Look for my video on Pickett's Charge. And remember, life is a journey. Enjoy the ride, and thank you for watching.